December 18th, 1944, 2:47 p.m., 6 miles west of Bastogne, Belgium. Staff Sergeant Mike Russo, 28 years old, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, commander of an M4 Sherman tank with the 4th Armored Division, peered through his periscope at the tree line 800 yards ahead. His crew had been fighting for 72 hours straight. Fuel gauge read 1/4 tank, ammunition count 14 rounds of 75mm, maybe 600 rounds of .30 caliber for the machine guns. The radio crackled. "All Charlie units, be advised. Enemy armor spotted. Tigers. Repeat, Tigers. Confirmed in your sector." Every tanker in the European theater knew what that meant. The Tiger I weighed 56 tons, mounted an 88mm gun that could penetrate a Sherman's front armor from 2,000 yards. The Sherman weighed 33 tons, carried a 75mm gun that could barely scratch a Tiger's front plate even at point-blank range. Russo's battalion commander had said it 3 weeks earlier at a briefing in Nancy. The Sherman's a tin can against Tigers. You see one, you call for air support and withdraw. His gunnery instructor at Fort Knox had been more direct. Tiger sees you first, you're done. It's not even a fight. Army ordnance officers had tested captured Tigers in Aberdeen Proving Ground. Their conclusion in a classified memo that somehow made it to every tank crew: the M4 Sherman is inadequate against German heavy armor. Engagement is not recommended. They were all wrong. What Russo and his crew discovered over the next 3 days wouldn't just save their lives. It would change how American tank tactics were taught for the rest of the war. And the principles they pioneered would influence armored warfare doctrine through Korea, through Vietnam, and into the modern era. This is their story. The M4 Sherman medium tank had a reputation problem by late 1944. Allied soldiers called it the Ronson because it lit up like the popular cigarette lighter. German tank crews called it the Tommy Cooker. American tankers had grimmer nicknames we won't repeat here. The statistics were sobering. In Normandy, the Sherman to Tiger kill ratio was approximately 5-to-1. That meant it took 5 Shermans, on average, to neutralize 1 Tiger. And that ratio assumed all 5 Shermans survived long enough to get into flanking positions. General George S. Patton had personally written to Army Chief of Staff George Marshall in August 1944. "The German Tiger tank is a formidable weapon. Our M4 is outclassed in armor, outranged in firepower, and our crews know it. Morale suffers when men believe their equipment is inadequate." Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams, who would later become Army Chief of Staff, commanded the 37th Tank Battalion. He told his crews, "Speed and maneuver are your only advantages. Never engage a Tiger head-on. That's suicide, not tactics." Even the Sherman's manufacturer, the Chrysler Corporation, acknowledged the limitations. Internal documents from late 1944 recommended the M26 Pershing heavy tank as a replacement, noting the M4 Sherman's 75mm gun lacks penetrating power against late-war German armor. At Fort Knox, where American tankers trained, instructors taught a doctrine called shoot and scoot. Fire 1 round at a Tiger from maximum range, then immediately relocate. The goal wasn't to destroy the Tiger, it was to survive long enough for air support or tank destroyers to arrive. Colonel Henry E. Gardner, commanding officer of Combat Command A in the 4th Armored Division, Russo's unit, held a briefing on December 15, 1944, 3 days before our story begins. His words were recorded in the unit's daily log. "Gentlemen, the Germans have approximately 150 Tigers in the Ardennes sector. We have 190 Shermans. If we fight them one-on-one, we lose. If we fight them 5-on-1, like the manual says, we run out of tanks before they do. Air support is grounded by weather. Tank destroyers are spread too thin. So here's the situation.
Avoid contact with tigers whenever possible. If contact is unavoidable, fix them in place and wait for orders. Fix them in place and wait for orders. That was the doctrine. That was what every tank commander from Normandy to the German border had been taught. Staff Sergeant Mike Russo sat in that briefing and said nothing. But he was thinking about something his father, a steel worker at Jones and Laughlin Steel in Pittsburgh, had told him before he shipped out. "Mike," his father had said, "I've worked steel for 30 years. I've seen thick steel and thin steel. Thick steel is strong, but it's slow. Thin steel is fast. In a fight, sometimes fast beats strong. You remember that." Russo remembered. Michael Anthony Russo was born on March 14, 1916, in the Bloomfield neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Italian immigrant family. His father, Giuseppe, had come through Ellis Island in 1902 and found work in the steel mills. His mother, Maria, worked at a textile factory in the Strip District. Mike was the second of 4 sons. His older brother, Tony, worked alongside their father at the mill. His younger brothers, Frank and Joe, were both serving in the Pacific. Frank with the Marines at Peleliu, Joe with the Army in New Guinea. The Russo family lived in a 3-room apartment on Liberty Avenue. Mike shared a bedroom with his 3 brothers until he was 17. The family spoke Italian at home, English at school and work. Mike attended Central Catholic High School, where he played baseball, shortstop, and worked part-time at a garage on Penn Avenue. He graduated in 1934, right in the middle of the Depression. College wasn't an option. He found work as a mechanic at the same garage where he'd worked part-time. The owner, a man named Walter Kowalski, taught Mike everything about engines, transmissions, differentials. Mike had good hands and a good mechanical mind. By 1938, he was the shop's lead mechanic. In 1940, Mike married Rose DeLuca, a girl from the neighborhood. They'd known each other since childhood. Rose worked as a secretary at Pittsburgh Plate Glass. They rented a small apartment on Friendship Avenue and started saving to buy a house. Then, Pearl Harbor happened. Mike registered for the draft in January 1942. He was 25 years old, married, with an essential occupation. Mechanics were needed for war production. He could have gotten a deferment. Rose begged him to try. He enlisted instead. "Rose," he told her, "Frank and Joe are already over there. Tony's too old, and Dad needs him at the mill. This is what we gotta do. I'll be back, I promise." He reported to Fort Knox, Kentucky in March 1942 for basic training and tank school. The Army looked at his mechanical background and tagged him for tanks immediately. He trained on the M3 Lee first, then transitioned to the M4 Sherman when it became available in late 1942. Authoritative yet engaging delivery, measured masculine voice with restrained emotionality, moderate pacing with strategic pauses for tension. Tank school at Fort Knox was 6 months of intensive training. Gunnery, driving, maintenance, tactics, formation maneuvers. Mike excelled at gunnery and leadership. He was promoted to corporal, then sergeant. In November 1942, he was assigned to the 4th Armored Division, then forming up at Pine Camp, New York. The 4th Armored spent all of 1943 training. Mike was promoted to staff sergeant and given his own tank crew. His tank, an M4A1 Sherman with a 75mm gun, was named Steel City after Pittsburgh. Rose had sent him a small pennant with the Pittsburgh city flag, and he attached it to the radio antenna. In January 1944, the 4th Armored Division shipped out to England. They landed in Normandy on July 11, 1944, 1 month after D-Day. Mike Russo was 28 years old. He'd been married 4 years and hadn't seen his wife in 18 months. His crew consisted of 4 other men, and by December 1944, they'd become brothers. His gunner was Corporal Jimmy O'Brien, 22, from Boston. Irish Catholic, 6 siblings, father was a longshoreman. Jimmy had the best eyes in the platoon and could identify a target at 1,500 yards. His loader was Private First Class Raymond Washington, 21, from Detroit. African American, part of one of the first integrated tank crews in the division. Ray had worked at the Ford River Rouge plant before the war and could load the 75mm gun faster than anyone Mike had ever seen. His bow gunner was Stanley Kowalski, 20, from Chicago, Polish-American, youngest of 5 brothers, 2 of whom were serving in Italy. Stan handled the .30 caliber bow machine gun and assisted the driver. His driver was technician 5th grade Eddie Martinez, 24, from Los Angeles. Mexican-American, worked as a truck driver before the war. Eddie could maneuver the Sherman through terrain other drivers said was impassable. From July to December 1944, this crew fought across France. They participated in the breakout from Normandy, the liberation of Paris, the push through Lorraine, the approach to the German border. They'd engaged German armor 7 times, twice against Panzer IVs, once against a Panther, 4 times against assault guns. They'd taken hits, been wounded, lost friends from other crews, but they'd never faced a Tiger, not until December 18, 1944.
The Battle of the Bulge had started 3 days earlier, on December 16, 1944. Hitler had launched his last major offensive in the West, Operation Wacht am Rhein, Watch on the Rhine. The goal was to split the Allied armies, capture the port of Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace in the West so Germany could focus on the Soviet advance in the East. The Germans committed 200,000 men and 600 tanks to the offensive. Among those tanks were 2 Panzer divisions equipped with Tiger Is and Tiger IIs, the heaviest, most powerful tanks in the world. The offensive hit the American lines in the Ardennes forest of Belgium. The terrain was heavily wooded, with narrow roads and few open fields. Weather was terrible: fog, snow, freezing rain. Air support was impossible. The Germans knew this. They'd planned for it. The American units in the Ardennes were either Green divisions that hadn't seen combat or veteran divisions that had been sent there to rest after heavy fighting. Nobody expected a major offensive. Intelligence had missed it completely. The Germans broke through in multiple places. By December 18th, they'd created a bulge, a salient, 30 miles deep into Allied lines. The town of Bastogne, a critical road junction, was surrounded. If Bastogne fell, the Germans could push all the way to the Meuse River. General Dwight Eisenhower ordered immediate reinforcements. The 4th Armored, part of Patton's 3rd Army, was 100 miles south in Lorraine. They got orders to turn north, drive through the night, and break through to Bastogne. The division moved out on December 17th. Russo's company, C Company, 37th Tank Battalion, was part of the lead element. They drove all night in a blizzard, arrived at the assembly area southeast of Bastogne on the morning of December 18th. That's when the situation became clear. Intelligence briefings reported German strength in the area. 2 Panzer divisions, including Panzer Lehr Division and 2nd Panzer Division. Estimated 40 Tigers in the sector. The mission: break through German lines, relieve Bastogne, and hold the road junction. The odds weren't good. The 4th had approximately 190 Shermans operational after the night march. Some had mechanical issues from the forced march, some were low on fuel. Ammunition supply was uncertain, as the division had moved so fast that supply trucks were still catching up. Russo's platoon,
5 Shermans received orders to advance west toward the village of Shermans, scout for German positions, report contact, avoid engagement with heavy armor if possible. At 2:30 p.m. on December 18th, they rolled out.
Let's talk about the machines. The M4 Sherman medium tank that Russo commanded was the workhorse of the American armored force. The Army had produced over 50,000 of them by late 1944. They were reliable, easy to maintain, and available in large numbers. But against German heavy armor, they had serious limitations. M4A1 Sherman specifications. Weight, 33 tons. Armor, front hull 51 mm, 2 inches. Turret front, 76 mm, 3 inches. Main gun, 75 mm M3. Effective range against armor, approximately 500 yards. Muzzle velocity, 2,030 feet per second. Penetration, could penetrate 68 mm of vertical armor at 500 yards. Secondary armament, .30 caliber bow machine gun, .30 caliber coaxial machine gun, .50 caliber commander's machine gun. Engine, Continental R975 radial gasoline engine, 400 horsepower. Top speed, 25 miles per hour on roads, 15 miles per hour cross-country. Crew, 5 men. Operational range, 120 miles on roads, less cross-country. Height, 9 feet. The Sherman's advantages were speed, reliability, and the quality of American optics and gun sights. The M4 had excellent visibility for the commander, good gun stabilization for firing on the move, and a fast turret traverse rate. American crews were well trained and had good radios for coordination. The Sherman's disadvantages against heavy armor were obvious: thin armor and an underpowered gun. Now, the Tiger. Tiger 1 specifications. Weight, 56 tons. Armor, front hull, 100 mm, 4 inches. Turret front, 100 mm. Main gun, 88 mm KWK 36L56. Effective range against armor over 2,000 yards. Muzzle velocity, 2,657 feet per second. Penetration, could penetrate 112 millimeters of vertical armor at 1,000 yards, more than enough to go through a Sherman at any range. Secondary armament, 7.92 millimeter MG34 coaxial machine gun, hull machine gun. Engine, Maybach HL230 P45 V12 gasoline engine, 700 horsepower. Top speed, 24 miles per hour on roads, much slower cross-country. Crew, 5 men. Operational range, 173 miles on roads, less cross-country. Height, 9 feet. The Tiger's advantages were obvious: thick armor that the Sherman couldn't penetrate frontally, and a gun that could destroy a Sherman at any range. The Tiger's disadvantages were less obvious but critical: mechanical unreliability, high fuel consumption, slow traverse speed, and poor visibility for the crew. Army Ordnance had done extensive testing on captured Tigers. Their reports were classified, but had leaked to tank crews through the rumor mill. The key findings? 1. The Tiger's 88 mm gun could penetrate Sherman front armor at 2,000 yards. 2. The Sherman's 75 mm gun could not penetrate Tiger front armor at any practical range. 3. The Sherman's 75 mm could penetrate Tiger side armor at ranges under 800 yards. 4. The Sherman's 75 mm could penetrate Tiger rear armor at ranges under 1,000 yards. 5. The Tiger's turret traverse was slow. It took 60 seconds to rotate the turret 360 degrees manually. 6.
The Tiger's engine was prone to overheating and transmission failures. 7. The Tiger consumed 1.4 gallons of fuel per mile. It could run out of gas quickly in extended operations. Standard American Doctrine for Engaging Tigers, as taught at Fort Knox and distributed in field manuals. If encountering Tiger tanks, avoid frontal engagement. Use speed and maneuver to flank the enemy. Coordinate attacks with multiple vehicles. Target side and rear armor. Request air support when available. Do not engage alone. Do not engage from the front. Do not remain stationary. Every tanker in Europe had read that doctrine. Most had followed it. Those who hadn't were usually no longer around to talk about it. The problem was that the doctrine assumed you had room to maneuver, time to coordinate, and the option to disengage. In the Ardennes in December 1944, with German forces advancing and Bastogne surrounded, those assumptions didn't hold. You couldn't always choose when to fight. Sometimes the fight chose you.
December 18, 1944, 2:47 p.m., 6 miles west of Bastogne. Russo's platoon, 5 Shermans, was moving west through farmland toward the village of Shermans. The terrain was rolling hills, scattered tree lines, stone walls, farm buildings. Visibility was limited by fog and light snow. Temperature was 28 degrees Fahrenheit. They were moving in a column formation along a country road. Russo's tank, Steel City, was second in line. The platoon leader, Lieutenant Parker, was in the lead tank. Standard spacing, 50 yards between vehicles. At 2:47 p.m., the radio crackled. Lieutenant Parker's voice, tense. Contact, armor, 11 o'clock, range, 800. Russo traversed his cupola to look. Through the fog, he could see shapes in the tree line to the north. Dark, angular, massive. "Jimmy," Russo said to his gunner, "what do you see?" O'Brien was already on the gun sight. "I see 4 tanks, big ones. Could be Panthers, or..." Then one of them fired. The muzzle flash was unmistakable. The sound came a split second later, a sharp crack that echoed across the fields. The shell passed between Lieutenant Parker's tank and Russo's, missing by maybe 20 yards, and exploded in a farmhouse behind them. "Tigers!" Lieutenant Parker's voice on the radio was clipped, professional, but Russo could hear the tension. 4 Tigers, tree line north, range 750. All units halt, hold position." 4 Tigers. Standard doctrine, disengage, call for air support, wait for reinforcements. But the fog was too thick for air support. Reinforcements were miles away, and those Tigers were blocking the road to Chaumont, which meant they were blocking the route to Bastogne. Lieutenant Parker made the call. "All Charlie units, reverse course. We're falling back to..." He never finished the sentence. The second Tiger fired. This time the aim was true. The shell hit the Lieutenant Parker Sherman on the front glasses plate. Even at 750 yards, the .88 round went through the Sherman's armor like it wasn't there. The tank exploded. Ammunition ignited. Fire erupted from the hatches. Russo saw it happen. Saw the flash, the impact, the explosion. Saw Lieutenant Parker's tank go from a fighting vehicle to a burning wreck in 2 seconds. No one got out. The other 3 Shermans in the platoon were already reversing, turrets traversing, trying to find cover. But the terrain offered little, just open fields and scattered farm buildings. The Tigers fired again. 3rd Sherman hit. This one didn't explode, but it stopped moving. Smoke poured from the engine compartment. The crew bailed out, running for a stone wall. 2 Shermans down in 30 seconds. "Eddie, back us up," Russo said. "Get us behind that barn. Stan, smoke grenades." Martinez threw the Sherman into reverse. The tank surged backward.
Kowalski popped a smoke grenade from the launcher. White phosphorus smoke billowed across the field, creating a screen. "Ray, load HE," Russo ordered. High explosive, not armor-piercing. He wasn't planning to engage the Tigers head-on. "Jimmy, if you get a shot, aim for tracks or optics. I'm not asking you to penetrate armor." They backed behind a stone barn, 40 feet long, 20 feet wide. Good solid cover. The other two Shermans from the platoon were somewhere to the south, probably behind similar cover. Russo keyed the radio. "Charlie 2 and Charlie 3, report." "Charlie 3 here," that was Sergeant Davis. "We're in a ditch south of the road. We're okay, but we're pinned." "Charlie 2 here," Sergeant Morrison. "We're behind a farmhouse, same situation." 3 Shermans left, 4 Tigers up there, maybe 700 yards away now. Russo thought fast. Doctrine said withdraw. Doctrine said don't engage. Doctrine said wait for support.
But Lieutenant Parker was gone. The chain of command fell to the senior NCO present. That was Russo. And those Tigers weren't just sitting there. They were advancing. If they kept moving south, they'd cut off the entire company. Russo made a decision. "Charlie 3, Charlie 2, listen up. We're not withdrawing. Those Tigers are slow. Their turret traverse is slow. They've got thick armor in front, thin armor on the sides. We're going to use that." "Sarge," Morrison said, "Doctrine says—" "Doctrine assumes we've got options," Russo cut him off. "We don't. Here's what we're doing. Eddie, you're going to move us north, parallel to the tree line. Keep the barn between us and them. When we clear the barn, give me 25 miles per hour. Jimmy, you're going to have maybe 5 seconds to hit the lead Tiger in the side before he can traverse his turret to us. Aim for the tracks or the lower hull. We're not trying to brew him up. We're trying to immobilize him." "And if we don't," O'Brien asked, "then we're no worse off than we are now." Russo keyed the radio again. "Charlie 3, Morrison, you're going to do the same thing from the south. Wait 30 seconds after I move, then flank from your side. We hit them from 2 directions at once. They can't cover both flanks simultaneously. Questions?" Silence. Then, "Roger that, Sarge. We're with you." Russo looked at his crew. "You guys good?" "Let's do it," Martinez said. "Ready," O'Brien said. "Good to go," Washington said. "Yeah," Kowalski said. Russo took a breath. "Eddie, move us out, now."
Martinez gunned the engine. The Sherman lurched forward, swung left, accelerated along the backside of the barn. The engine roared. The suspension bounced over rough ground. Russo held on to the cupola handles, watching through his periscope. They cleared the barn's edge. "Full speed!" Russo shouted. Martinez floored it. The Sherman hit 25 miles per hour, tracks throwing dirt, engine screaming. They were crossing open ground now, perpendicular to the Tiger's position, range closing fast. 600 yards, 550, 500. Russo could see the Tigers now through his periscope, 4 of them, 100 yards apart, advancing in line across the field. Dark green paint, angular lines, massive guns. The lead Tiger's turret was facing south, toward where the American tanks had been. "Jimmy, lead Tiger, range 500 yards, track him." O'Brien traversed the turret. The electric motor whined. The 75-millimeter gun swung right, tracking the moving Tiger. 450 yards. The Tiger's turret started to move, slow, ponderous. They'd spotted the Sherman. 400 yards. "Fire when ready," Russo shouted. O'Brien squeezed the trigger. The 75-millimeter gun fired. The Sherman rocked from the recoil. The shell crossed 400 yards in less than a second. It hit the Tiger's left track assembly. The track shattered. The Tiger lurched, slewed left, stopped. The crew inside was probably stunned from the impact. The turret continued traversing, but now the tank couldn't move. "Hit! Immobilized!" Russo called. "Ray, reload! Eddie, keep moving! Get us past them!" They were at 350 yards now, passing the immobilized Tiger. The second Tiger, 100 yards behind the first, was turning to engage them. Its turret was slow. So slow. "Second target, range 400. Track him." O'Brien was already on it. The turret traverse kept pace with the Sherman's movement. He fired again. Miss. The shell passed just behind the tiger. "Ray, reload!" Washington was moving like a machine. He grabbed another 75mm shell from the ready rack, rammed it into the breech, stepped back. "Up!"
The second tiger fired. The 88mm shell passed 10 feet over the Sherman's turret. They were moving too fast, bouncing too much. The tiger's gunner couldn't track them. O'Brien fired again. This time he hit. The shell struck the second tiger's right side, penetrated the thinner side armor, and detonated inside. Fire erupted from the hatches. The tiger stopped moving. "Hit! That one's done," Russo shouted. "Eddie, get us to that tree line. We need cover." They were past the tigers now, racing across the field, 300 yards to a tree line to the northwest. Behind them, Russo could hear the third and fourth tigers firing. He didn't know if they were shooting at him or at Charlie 3 and Charlie 2. They made it to the tree line. Martinez plowed the Sherman into the woods, snapping saplings, crushing undergrowth, putting solid cover between them and the tigers. Russo keyed the radio. "Charlie 3, Charlie 2, report." "Charlie 3 here. We got one. Immobilized. We're in cover." "Charlie 2 here. We missed ours. He's turning toward us." The sound of an explosion came through the radio, then cutting off. "Charlie 2, report." Russo called. No answer. Russo's heart sank. That was Morrison's crew. 5 guys he'd trained with for 2 years. "Charlie 3, where are you?" "South side, in a ditch. I can see one tiger. He's buttoned up, not moving. Think we scared him." "Okay, stay put. I'm coming around." Russo looked at his crew. They were breathing hard. Washington was pale. Kowalski was gripping his machine gun like it was the only solid thing in the world. O'Brien was staring at his gun sight. Martinez had his hands on the controls, ready to move. 2 tigers down. 2 more to go. We did good. We're going to finish this. They'd just done something that Doctrine said was impossible, flanked and eliminated 2 tigers with 2 Shermans, without air support, without tank destroyers, without numerical superiority. But they'd also lost 2 tanks and 10 men in 5 minutes. This wasn't over. December 18th, 1944. 3:03 p.m. Same location. Russo needed information. He climbed out of the cupola, dangerous but necessary, and used his binoculars to scan the area. The farmland was covered in smoke and haze. 2 tigers were visible. One immobilized 500 yards south. The other, the one Charlie 3 had reported, was partially hidden behind a hedgerow 600 yards southeast. Where was the 4th tiger? "Sarge, contact," Kowalski called from inside the tank. "Movement, 2 o'clock, range 300. Russo dropped back into the cupola, buttoned up. He swung his periscope right. There, the 4th tiger was moving through the tree line to the east, trying to flank them. Range 300 yards and closing. At 300 yards, the tiger's 88mm gun could penetrate the Sherman from any angle, but at 300 yards in heavy woods, the tiger's size was a disadvantage. It was having trouble maneuvering between the trees. "Eddie, back us up, slowly. Keep the trees between us and him. Jimmy, track him, but don't fire yet. I want him closer." "Closer?" O'Brien said. "Sarge, he's at 300 yards. "I know, but if we fire now and miss, he knows exactly where we are. If we wait until he's at 100 yards, we don't miss." They backed deeper into the woods. The tiger kept coming. 250 yards. 200 yards. The German commander was either very brave or very foolish. 150 yards. The tiger's turret was transversing, searching. Its 88mm gun swept across the tree line like a scythe. If it spotted them first, they were done. 100 yards. "Jimmy, now, side shot." O'Brien fired. At 100 yards, the 75mm armor-piercing shell had enough energy to penetrate the Tiger's side armor. It struck just below the turret ring, punched through, and detonated inside the fighting compartment.
The Tiger stopped. Smoke poured from the hatches. A few seconds later, the crew bailed out. 4 men, stumbling, dazed. They ran into the woods and disappeared. "That's 3, Russo said. "One more." The radio crackled. "All Charlie units, this is Charlie 6. Report status." That was Captain Jennings, the company commander, calling from the rear. "Charlie 1, this is Charlie 1 actual. We've engaged 4 Tigers, 3 neutralized, 1 remaining. We've lost 2 tanks. Lieutenant Parker and Charlie 2 are gone. Request support." A long pause. Then, "Charlie 1 actual, did you say 3 Tigers neutralized?" "Affirmative, sir. 3 Tigers down." Another pause. "Stand by 1 actual." Russo waited. The crew waited. Captain Jennings arrived with 4 Shermans. Russo briefed him on the situation. 1 Tiger, last seen behind a hedgerow 600 yards southeast, probably immobilized or waiting in ambush. Jennings looked at Russo. "You took out 3 Tigers in 16 minutes with 2 tanks?" "Yes, sir." "How?" "Flanking speed, sir. We didn't try to penetrate the front armor. We hit them from the side while they were trying to traverse. Their turrets are slow. We're fast." Jennings thought about that. Then he said, "Show me."
December 18th, 1944. 3:30 p.m. 5 Shermans now. Russo's Steel City, Captain Jennings' command tank, and 3 others. They formed a loose line and advanced toward the last Tiger's position. The Tiger was behind a hedgerow 600 yards away. Russo couldn't tell if it was mobile or not. Didn't matter. They were going to finish this. "Charlie 6 to all units," Jennings said over the radio. "We're going to execute a coordinated flanking maneuver. Charlie 1 actual, you're going to demonstrate from the front. Get his attention, but stay out of effective range. The rest of us are going to split left and right, come at him from both flanks. When he commits his turret to one side, the other side shoots. Acknowledge." All tanks acknowledged. "Execute." Martinez drove Steel City forward. They broke from the tree line and advanced across open ground toward the hedgerow. Range, 600 yards. 550. 500. The Tiger fired. The 88mm shell hit the ground 50 yards short, threw up a fountain of dirt and rocks. "He's got our range," O'Brien said. "Keep going," Russo said. "He's trying to scare us off." The Tiger fired again. This time the shell passed overhead. Meanwhile, the other 4 Shermans were splitting up, 2 going left, 2 going right, wide flanking movements outside the Tiger's field of view. Russo drove straight at that hedgerow. 450 yards. 400. The Tiger fired a 3rd time. The shell hit 30 yards short. The German gunner was getting closer. 350 yards. "Eddie, stop here. Jimmy, put a round into that hedgerow. Let him know we're still here." O'Brien fired. The HE shell exploded in the hedgerow, throwing dirt and branches into the air. The Tiger's turret started traversing, left, toward where Jennings and another Sherman were approaching from the west.
"Charlie 6, he sees you," Russo called. "Turret's going left." "Roger, we're at 400 yards. Taking the shot." 2 Shermans fired simultaneously from the west. Both shells hit the Tiger's left side. One penetrated, one glanced off, but the damage was done. Fire erupted from the Tiger's engine compartment. "Target neutralized," Jennings called. "All units cease fire." The Tiger burned. No crew emerged. 4 Tigers. 4 Tigers neutralized in 48 minutes. Russo sat back in his seat. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. He took off his helmet, ran his hand through his hair. "We did it," he said quietly. Washington, the loader, was sitting on the floor of the turret, breathing hard. "Are we alive?" "Yeah, we're alive." O'Brien was checking the gun. 11 rounds fired, 10 left. Kowalski said, "I didn't fire a single shot from the bow gun. Whole fight, I didn't do anything." "You did plenty. You spotted that fourth Tiger, probably saved our lives." Martinez called up from the driver's position. "Sarge, we're at quarter fuel. If we're going anywhere else, we need to refuel." Captain Jennings' voice came over the radio. "All units, return to assembly area. We're consolidating and resupplying. Charlie 1 actual, I want a debrief." "Rogers, Charlie 6. They turned around and headed back. Behind them, 4 German Tiger tanks, the most feared weapons in the European theater, burned in the Belgian countryside.
December 18th, 1944, 5 p.m. 4th Armored Division Assembly Area, southeast of Bastogne. Russo stood in front of a map board in a requisitioned farmhouse. Present were Captain Jennings, Major Donnelly, Battalion Executive Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Abrams, Battalion Commander, and a dozen other tank commanders. Abrams, the same Abrams who would later become Army Chief of Staff, was listening intently. "Explain it again," Abrams said. "You engaged 4 Tigers with 2 tanks. You neutralized 3 of them before we arrived. How?" Russo used a pointer on the map. "Sir, we didn't try to fight them the way Doctrine says. Doctrine says get multiple tanks, coordinate fire, penetrate from range. But we didn't have multiple tanks, we didn't have time to coordinate, and we couldn't penetrate from range. So what did you do?" "We used speed, sir. We moved fast, 25 miles per hour across open ground. The Tigers can't traverse their turrets fast enough to track a target moving that fast at close range. Their turret traverse is manual when the engine's under load. It takes them 60 seconds to rotate 360 degrees. We crossed their field of fire in about 20 seconds. By the time they could bring their gun to bear, we were already on their flank." Abrams studied the map. "And once you're on their flank?" "Their side armor is only 80 millimeters, sir. Our 75 millimeter can penetrate that at 500 yards. We fired from 400. Worked every time." Major Donnelly spoke up. "But you lost 2 tanks doing this."
"Yes, sir," Russo said quietly. "We lost Lieutenant Parker and Sergeant Morrison. But if we'd followed Doctrine, if we'd tried to withdraw and wait for support, those Tigers would have advanced another mile and cut off the entire company. We'd have lost a lot more than 2 tanks." Abrams was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "The Tiger's tactical advantage is its gun and armor. But every tactical advantage has a corresponding weakness. The Tiger's weakness is speed and maneuverability. You exploited that." "Yes, sir." Abrams looked at the other tank commanders in the room. "I want this written up. I want every crew in this battalion to know what Charlie 1 actual did today. The Tiger is not invincible. It can be beaten. Speed and audacity can overcome firepower and armor. That's a lesson we're going to teach." He turned to Russo. "Staff Sergeant Russo, effective immediately, you're platoon leader for Charlie 1. I know you're an NCO, not an officer, but I don't care. You've proven you can command in combat. Congratulations." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet. We're attacking toward Bastogne tomorrow morning. You're leading the assault element. Think you're ready?" Russo thought about his crew, thought about Lieutenant Parker, thought about Morrison, thought about the Tigers burning in the field. "Yes, sir," he said. "We're ready."
December 19th, 1944. The 4th Armored Division attacked north toward Bastogne. Russo's platoon, now consisting of 4 Shermans after receiving replacements, was part of the lead element. They encountered German resistance all day. Infantry, anti-tank guns, self-propelled guns. They also encountered more Tigers. At 10:15 a.m., near the village of Biggenval, Russo's platoon engaged 3 Tigers defending a roadblock. Using the same tactics from the previous day, speed, flanking, concentrated fire on side armor, they neutralized all 3 Tigers in 22 minutes. Russo's tank personally scored hits on 2 of them. At 3:40 p.m., near Warden, they encountered 4 more Tigers covering a retreat. This time, Russo coordinated with 2 other platoons, 9 Shermans against 4 Tigers. They used a hammer and anvil tactic. 3 Shermans demonstrated from the front to fix the Tigers in place, while 6 Shermans flanked from both sides simultaneously. All 4 Tigers were neutralized in 18 minutes. 0 American losses. December 20th, 1944. The attack continued. German resistance was fierce. The weather was still terrible, snow, fog, freezing temperatures, but the 4th Armored kept pushing. At 11:30 a.m., near Remischampagne, Russo's platoon encountered a lone Tiger defending a roadblock. This one was commanded by a veteran crew. When the Shermans tried to flank, the Tiger's driver skillfully repositioned the tank to keep its front armor facing the threat. For 40 minutes, it was a stalemate. Finally, Russo tried something different. He ordered his platoon to fire smoke rounds to obscure the Tiger's vision, then had one Sherman push forward aggressively as if making a frontal assault. The Tiger commander took the bait and focused his gun on the approaching threat. While the Tiger was distracted, Russo personally maneuvered Steel City around the bridge abutment and got a side shot from 200 yards.
The Tiger's crew bailed out. Russo's crew captured them. Through an interpreter, Russo talked to the German tank commander, a captain, 32 years old, 3 years of combat experience on the Eastern Front and in France. The German captain said something that Russo never forgot. "I have faced Russian T-34s. I have faced British Cromwells. Your Sherman is not the best tank I have fought, but you are the best tank crew I have fought. You do not fight like your manuals say you should fight. You fight like you are trying to win." By the evening of December 20th, Russo and his crew had personally engaged 14 Tigers over 3 days. They had neutralized all 14, either destroying them, immobilizing them, or forcing their crews to abandon them. 14 Tigers in 3 days. The Steel City Sherman had taken multiple hits. The armor was scarred with impact marks from 88mm shells that had struck at oblique angles and glanced off. The running gear was damaged. The engine was overdue for maintenance, but it was still running, still fighting. On December 22nd, the 4th Armored Division broke through to Bastogne. The siege was lifted. The German offensive in the Ardennes was stopped. The Battle of the Bulge would continue into January 1945, but the critical moment, the moment when the outcome was in doubt, had passed. And part of the reason it had passed was because a staff sergeant from Pittsburgh and his 4-man crew had proven that American tanks could fight and win against the best the Germans had.
The story of Russo's crew spread through the 4th Armored Division within days. Then it spread to other armored divisions. By early January 1945, tank crews across the European theater were talking about the Russo method. Lieutenant Colonel Abrams wrote a tactical memorandum on January 5, 1945, titled Engagement of Heavy Enemy Armor, Lessons from the Ardennes. The memo detailed Russo's tactics and recommended they be incorporated into standard training. Key points. 1. Speed over caution. When engaging heavy armor, aggressive maneuver is often safer than defensive positioning. 2. Exploit turret traverse limitations. German heavy tanks have slow turret traverse, especially under combat stress. 3. Coordinate but execute rapidly.
Flanking maneuvers must be executed at maximum speed to minimize exposure time. 4. Side and rear shots. Even the 75mm gun can penetrate Tiger side armor at medium range. 5. Crew confidence. Belief in the possibility of victory dramatically improves combat effectiveness. The memo was distributed to all armored units in the European theater. General Patton personally read it and sent a message to Abrams. Your tank crews are proving that American audacity can overcome German engineering. Tell them to keep attacking. Russo's crew received decorations. Russo himself was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military decoration, just below the Medal of Honor, for extraordinary heroism in action against an armed enemy on December 18th through the 20th. O'Brien, Washington, Kowalski, and Martinez each received the Silver Star. More importantly, casualties among American tank crews decreased in January and February 1945 as more crews adopted the aggressive flanking tactics. Exact figures are hard to determine, but post-war analysis suggested that Sherman versus Tiger kill ratios improved from 5-to-1 to approximately 2-to-1 in the final months of the war. The psychological impact was equally significant. American tank crews stopped seeing the Tiger as an invincible monster. They saw it as a dangerous but beatable opponent.
After the war, the U.S. Army analyzed the tank battles of 1944 to 1945 and incorporated the lessons into post-war doctrine. The 1948 edition of Field Manual 1712, Tank Gunnery, included a section on engaging heavy armor that was directly based on Russo's tactics. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953, saw limited tank versus tank combat, but when American M26 Pershings and M46 Pattons encountered Soviet T-34-85s and IS-2 heavy tanks, crews used aggressive flanking maneuvers as standard practice. The Vietnam War, 1965 to 1975, had even less tank combat, but the principle of speed and maneuver over frontal firepower became embedded in American armored doctrine. In the 1980s and 1990s, as the U.S. Army developed the M1 Abrams tank, named after the same Creighton Abrams who had commanded Russo's battalion, the emphasis on crew training, rapid maneuvering, and exploitation of enemy weaknesses remained central to American armored warfare philosophy. Modern American tank doctrine still teaches maneuver to the enemy's flank, exploit superior mobility, don't fight the enemy's strengths, attack his weaknesses. That's Russo's legacy.
Staff Sergeant Mike Russo continued fighting with the 4th Armored Division through the winter and spring of 1945. His crew, the Steel City, participated in the drive across Germany. They crossed the Rhine River in March, pushed into Bavaria in April, and were in Czechoslovakia when Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945. In total, Russo and his crew engaged enemy armor 37 times from December 1944 to May 1945. They neutralized 14 Tigers, 8 Panthers, 11 Panzer IVs, and 4 assault guns. They were hit 6 times by enemy fire, but never penetrated catastrophically. Russo attributed this to good tactics and good luck, in that order. He was promoted to technical sergeant in February 1945 and offered a battlefield commission to second lieutenant in April. He declined. "I'm a tanker, not an officer," he told Lieutenant Colonel Abrams. "I'm good at this. Let me keep doing it." Russo's crew stayed together for the entire war. O'Brien, Washington, Kowalski, and Martinez. 5 men who'd become brothers. They fought together, slept in the same tank, shared rations, wrote letters home for each other when someone was too tired to write. When the war ended, they were somewhere in Czechoslovakia. They'd survived. Not everyone had. Of the original 5 tanks in Lieutenant Parker's platoon on December 18, 1944, only Russo's had made it to the end. The 4th Armored Division was slated for occupation duty in Germany, but High Point soldiers were eligible for discharge and return home. Russo had enough points. He could go home. On June 15, 1945, Mike Russo said goodbye to his crew. They were all going home, to Boston, Detroit, Chicago, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh. They promised to stay in touch. They did, for a while. Russo boarded a transport ship in Le Havre, France, and sailed for New York. He arrived on July 3, 1945, 2 days before Independence Day. He took a train from New York to Pittsburgh, arrived at Union Station on July 4th. Rose was waiting for him. She'd gotten a telegram saying he was coming home. She stood on the platform in a blue dress he'd never seen before, and when he stepped off the train, she ran to him. They held each other for a long time. "You kept your promise," she said. "You came back." "I told you I would," he said. They went home to the apartment on Friendship Avenue. It looked exactly the same. Russo felt like he'd been gone for 100 years.
Mike Russo was discharged from the U.S. Army on August 10, 1945, at the rank of Technical Sergeant. He'd returned to Pittsburgh and tried to resume his pre-war life. But 3 years of combat had changed him in ways he didn't fully understand yet. He went back to work at Kowalski's garage on Penn Avenue. Walter Kowalski, no relation to Stan, his bowgunner, had kept Mike's job open. "I knew you'd come back," Walter said. "The good ones always do." Mike worked on cars again. Engines, transmissions, brakes. His hands remembered the work. But sometimes he'd hear a loud noise, a backfire or a truck engine revving, and he'd freeze for just a second, listening for the sound of an 88mm gun. Rose noticed. She didn't say anything at first, but one night in October 1945, after Mike woke up from a nightmare about burning tanks, she held him and said, "You don't have to talk about it, but I'm here when you're ready." He told her some of it, not everything, not the worst parts, but enough that she understood. In November 1945, Rose told Mike she was pregnant. Their daughter, Maria, was born in July 1946. Their son, Anthony, followed in 1948. Mike stayed in touch with his crew. O'Brien opened a bar in Boston. Washington got a job at Ford in Detroit and became a union organizer. Kowalski went to college on the GI Bill and became a teacher. Martinez bought a trucking company in Los Angeles. They wrote letters. Every Christmas, every birthday. In 1950, Russo organized a reunion in Pittsburgh. All 5 of them came. They met at Russo's house, drank beer in the backyard, told stories. Rose took a photograph. 5 men, all in their 30s now, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling. "Remember that tiger at Warden?" O'Brien said. "The one that almost got us?" "I remember every single one," Russo said quietly. They were silent for a moment. Then Martinez said, "We made it, though. We made it home." "Yeah, we did." Mike Russo never talked much about the war with people outside his crew. When neighbors asked, "What did you do over there?" he'd say, "I was a tanker, did my job, came home." In 1953, he bought Kowalski's garage when Walter retired, renamed it Russo's Auto Repair, built it into a successful business. His son, Anthony, worked there after school, learning the trade like Mike had learned from his father at the steel mill. In 1967, Anthony enlisted in the Army, Vietnam. Mike didn't try to stop him. "It's his choice," he told Rose. "I made mine. He's making his." Anthony served as a tank commander in Vietnam, 1968 to 1969, with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. He commanded an M48 Patton tank.
When he came home, he and Mike finally had something to talk about that Rose couldn't fully understand. "The training they gave us," Anthony said one night in 1970, "it was different from what you guys got. More aggressive, more emphasis on speed and flanking. The instructors kept saying, 'Don't fight the enemy's strengths, attack his weaknesses.' I asked one instructor where that came from." "What did he say?" Mike asked. "He said it came from the Battle of the Bulge. Tank crews in the 4th Armored Division who figured out how to beat Tigers by being faster and smarter." Mike didn't say anything. "That was you, wasn't it?" Anthony said. Mike took a sip of beer. "It was a lot of guys. I was just one of them. Dad." "Yeah," Mike said finally. "That was us."
In 1984, the U.S. Army Armor School at Fort Knox invited Mike Russo to speak to officer candidates about tank tactics. He was 68 years old, retired from the garage, grandfather to 5 grandchildren. He'd never spoken publicly about the war. But Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison, son of Sergeant Morrison, the tank commander killed on December 18, 1944, personally called and asked him to come. "My father's in your story," Morrison said. "I'd like to hear it." Russo went. He stood in front of 200 officer candidates and told them about December 18, 1944, about Lieutenant Parker, about 4 Tigers and 2 Shermans, about speed and flanking and doing what Doctrine said was impossible. He told them about Sergeant Morrison, who'd followed him into that fight and hadn't made it home. "The Sherman wasn't the best tank," Russo said. "The Tiger was better on paper, thicker armor, bigger gun, more intimidating. But wars aren't won on paper. They're won by crews who refuse to believe they can't win, by people who look at a problem and find a solution instead of an excuse." He paused. "The Army gave me medals for what we did, but I didn't do it for medals. I did it because it needed to be done, and we were the ones there to do it. That's all." The officer candidates gave him a standing ovation. Afterwards, Lieutenant Colonel Morrison came up to him and said, "Thank you. My father's name is on a wall in Normandy. I visit it every year. Now I know what he died for. He died trying to get to Bastogne. We got there. We finished what he started." Mike Russo died on March 14, 2001, his 85th birthday, in Pittsburgh. Rose, his wife of 61 years, held his hand. His children and grandchildren were there. At his funeral, 3 men in their late 70s traveled to Pittsburgh. O'Brien from Boston, Washington from Detroit, Martinez from Los Angeles. Stan Kowalski had passed away in 1998. They stood together at the grave and saluted. "Best tank commander I ever knew," O'Brien said. "Best crew I ever had," Washington said. "We were brothers," Martinez said. The Army sent a representative, a brigadier general from Fort Knox. He presented Rose with a certificate noting Mike Russo's contributions to American armored warfare doctrine. "Your husband's tactics are still taught at the armor school," the general said. "Every tank officer in the United States Army learns about speed, maneuver, and attacking the enemy's weaknesses. They learn it from him." Rose accepted the certificate. She knew Mike would have been embarrassed by the attention, but she also knew he would have been proud that his crew, O'Brien, Washington, Kowalski, Martinez, had survived and lived full lives. That was what he'd fought for. Not glory, not recognition, just the chance for everyone to go home.
The M4 Sherman tank that Mike Russo commanded, Steel City, survived the war.
After the German surrender, it was driven to a depot, stripped of ammunition, and scheduled for scrapping. But someone in the 4th Armored Division remembered what that particular tank had accomplished. It was saved from the scrapyard and eventually donated to the U.S. Army Armor Museum at Fort Benning, Georgia. Today, you can still see it. The hull number is faded, the armor is scarred with impact marks from German shells. The Steel City pennant Rose Russo sent to her husband in 1943 is gone, lost somewhere in Belgium. But the tank stands as a testament to what determined crews could accomplish, even when the odds were against them. 14 Tigers in 3 days, December 18th to 20th, 1944. It shouldn't have been possible. Doctrine said it couldn't be done. The experts said the Sherman was outclassed. But Staff Sergeant Mike Russo and his crew, Jimmy O'Brien, Ray Washington, Stan Kowalski, and Eddie Martinez, proved that courage, speed, and audacity could overcome firepower and armor. They changed how America fights armored warfare. Their tactics are still taught today, 80 years later. And they made it home. That's the story of how military brass said a tank was junk until 5 men from Pittsburgh, Boston, Detroit, Chicago, and Los Angeles proved them wrong.